A century after John's passing, few living souls remembered his face. The sound of his voice, the way he walked, the warmth of his smile, those had faded into the past. And yet, his story was still alive, carried not only in books but in the fabric of culture itself. His words had outlived time. Resilience is not about never breaking, it is about rising again. That sentence, once scribbled in a quiet notebook, had been translated into dozens of languages. Children in schools recited it as part of morning lessons. Politicians quoted it in speeches. Artists painted it across walls in cities where hope was scarce. What had once been a reflection written for his daughter had become a universal proverb. The Quiet Life Foundation, founded decades earlier, had grown into a global network of centers dedicated to healing and renewal. Survivors of war, illness, betrayal, and loss gathered under its name, not to worship John as a hero but to share their own stories, guided by his philosophy. His writings were used not as doctrine but as a gentle hand, a reminder that ordinary lives carried extraordinary resilience. Yet with time, as often happens, John's life became more legend than memory. Stories about him began to blur. Some said he was a teacher who had lost everything and rebuilt. Others imagined him as a poet, a philosopher, even a wandering sage. The details mattered less than the truth his story carried. He had become an archetype, the figure of the broken man who chose to forgive, who chose to rise. In one small village, children played a game called the chair on the porch. They would sit in an empty chair and tell a story about how they had overcome something hard. Their parents told them this tradition came from an old man named John who used to sit on a porch watching the horizon. Few remembered more than that, but the ritual lived on, giving each new generation a voice to share their resilience. In a bustling city, a mural stretched across an entire building. A man's silhouette facing the horizon, with words above it, even in silence, a voice can echo forever. People walked past it daily, some never knowing its origin, others pausing to whisper thanks to the man they had never met. John's great-great-grandchildren, now elderly themselves, sometimes wondered if the world had forgotten the true man behind the legend. To them, he was still a grandfather, a writer, a survivor of betrayal who had chosen forgiveness. They kept the wooden box safe, its journals preserved, its pages fragile but intact. From time to time, scholars visited to study the original manuscripts, to feel the ink that John himself had pressed onto paper. One of his descendants, a historian, once wrote, "We speak of John as though he were larger than life, but the truth is, he was simply life-sized. It is his ordinariness, his humanness, that gives his story power. He did not conquer kingdoms or invent empires. He simply lived, broke, healed, and loved again. That is why he endures. Because he was us." And so, John became more than a man and less than a man at the same time. He became a story, a mirror held up to every generation, reflecting the timeless struggle between despair and hope. Centuries would pass. His name might one day fade, the exact details of his life slipping into the shadows of forgotten history. But the essence of his story, the choice to forgive, the courage to rebuild, the quiet dignity of resilience, would never die. It would live in every act of kindness, every broken heart that chose healing, every person who sat in silence and found strength in the horizon. For in the end, John's true immortality was never in the words alone. It was in the lives changed by them.